My hands are shaking again. I grip the glass harder, hoping the bartender does not notice. 300 years of combat experience across 40 star systems, and my hands still shake when I think about that day. The bar on Neutral Station Delta 9 is quiet tonight, which is how I like it. Quiet means I can hear someone approaching. Quiet means I can see the exits. Quiet means I am probably safe. Probably. My name is Vrextel Kerr. I'm a Krogan, which means I stand 7 feet tall, have natural armor plating across my shoulders and back, and come from a species that has been fighting wars since before your kind discovered fire. I was once the commander of the Crimson Fang Mercenary Company. We were feared across the Outer Rim. Governments hired us. Corporations paid us in rare metals. Warlords begged for our services. We broke sieges that had lasted decades. We ended rebellions that armies could not stop. We were the best. 20 years ago, I took a contract I should have refused. 20 years ago, I learned why every experienced mercenary in the galaxy has one rule carved into their bones. You can fight humans. You can fight human armies. You can fight human fleets. But if the contract mentions the words human elite units, you burn the data chip. You run to the nearest transport, and you never speak of it again. I did not know that rule back then. I thought I knew everything. I thought 3 centuries of victories made me untouchable. I was wrong. And by the time I understood how wrong I was, 187 of my soldiers were gone, my company was finished, and I had become something I never expected to be. A messenger. Their messenger. Let me tell you how it started. I sit here in this bar every evening because a young Krogan officer is supposed to meet me tonight. He wants my advice. He has a lucrative contract offer. He thinks I am a paranoid old fool who lost his courage. He is about to make the same mistake I made. My job, the job they gave me without ever asking, is to stop him. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to that morning in my office on the Crimson Fang command ship. Let me tell you how overconfidence almost ended me. It was a standard morning. My second in command, an old Draxan named Kelsiv, walked into my office with a data chip in his long gray hand. He had served with me for 80 years. He was the only soldier I fully trusted. He was also the only soldier who had ever told me no and meant it and survived. He placed the data chip on my desk. The contract appeared in the air between us, glowing blue, rotating slowly. A Theshan consortium, wealthy, respected. The target was a small human research outpost on a contested mining world called Carnes 4. The pay was 10 times our standard rate. 10 times. I remember feeling my hearts beat faster, the way they always did when a big contract appeared. I scanned the intelligence report. The outpost had a security force of 12 human soldiers, just 12. Against my 200 veterans, that was not a fight. That was a training exercise with good money attached. I looked up at Kelsiv, expecting to see his usual calm approval. Instead, his skin had turned a pale green, which meant something was wrong. He asked me one question: which human unit was guarding the outpost? I checked the file. The designation was 12th Reconnaissance Detachment, Standard Scouts. I told him so. I was already mentally spending the payment. A new command ship, better weapons for my men, a proper retirement fund for Kelsiv, who deserved one. Kelsiv did not move. He stood there, looking at the holographic contract, and his breathing became shallow. Then he said something I did not understand at the time. He said in Krogan, so my translator would not record it, that 12th Reconnaissance Detachment was not a reconnaissance unit. It was a cover name. The real name of the unit, the one they used among themselves, was Ghost Battalion. He said he had fought them once, long ago, during the border skirmishes of the Outer Spiral. He had been one of 3 survivors out of 1,200 soldiers. I laughed. I actually laughed at him. I told him that was impossible. 12 humans could not defeat 1,200 Draxan warriors. Humans were smaller than us, weaker than us. They did not have our natural armor. They did not have our strength. They broke their own bones just by falling down. Kelsiv did not laugh with me. He picked up the data chip, placed it back on my desk, and told me he was resigning, effective immediately. He had served me faithfully for 80 years. He had never once questioned my judgment. But he would not go with me to Carney's 4. He would not watch me die. He would not watch my company die. He would go back to his home world, spend time with his grandchildren, and pray to his ancestors that I would somehow survive. I was furious. I called him a coward. I told him that after 80 years of service he was abandoning me over a simple contract. I threatened his pension. I threatened his reputation. I said things I regret now, things I wish I could take back. Kelsiv just looked at me with those ancient yellow eyes. Then he said something that I did not understand for 20 years. He said that in his long life, he had learned that some enemies cannot be defeated by being stronger, faster, or smarter. Some enemies can only be survived by not fighting them at all. Humans were one of those enemies, but only the elite ones. Only the ones who had not forgotten what humans used to be before civilization. He left my office, he left my ship, he left my life. I never saw him again. I should have listened, but I was a fool wrapped in 300 years of victory, and fools do not listen to warnings. They charge into the dark, certain that the dark has never met anything like them before. The dark has always met something like us before. That is why it is the dark. I gathered my officers. I briefed them on the mission. 200 of the finest mercenaries in the galaxy. Krogan heavy infantry in powered armor. Vexian snipers who could shoot a coin out of the air at 2 miles. Mordek shock troopers who could punch through reinforced walls. We had conquered entire planets with smaller forces. My intelligence officer, a clever little Pratha named Siskis, raised one concern. She had tried to gather additional information on the human unit and found something strange. There were no public records, no medal citations, no casualty reports, no unit histories. The 12th Reconnaissance Detachment existed in the human military database, but behind that entry there was nothing, just silence. I told her that meant they were new, untested, boring scouts who had never done anything worth recording. She did not look convinced, but she did not argue. That was my mistake. I should have surrounded myself with officers who would argue with me. Instead, I surrounded myself with officers who agreed with me. That is how leaders die. They build walls against their own wisdom. We departed for Carney's for the next morning. The journey took 3 days through hyperspace. I spent those 3 days planning the attack. 3 simultaneous drop zones, overwhelming force at each point. The 12 human soldiers would be captured or eliminated within minutes. We would secure the research outpost, extract whatever the Thesian consortium wanted extracted, and be back in orbit within 6 hours. Simple, clean, lucrative. On the 3rd night, I had a dream I have never forgotten. In the dream, I was walking through a forest on my home world. The forest was silent, too silent. No birds, no insects, no wind. I realized I was being watched. I turned in every direction, but I could not see anyone. Then I heard a voice directly behind my head, so close that if I had reached up, I could have touched whoever was speaking. The voice said, in perfect Krogan, "We have been watching you for a long time, Commander Kerr." I woke up covered in cold sweat. My hearts were pounding. My natural armor had extended to its full defensive position, which only happens when my body believes I am in mortal danger. I sat up in my bunk and breathed slowly until the fear passed. Just a dream, I told myself. Just pre-mission nerves. I did not know then that humans have been studying dream communication for 60 years. I did not know that the human elite units had technology that could reach across light years into the minds of their targets, not to harm them but to watch them, to learn them, to understand what made them afraid. That dream was not random. It was an introduction. Marcus had been meeting me for the first time. At the time, I just drank some water and went back to sleep. I had a mission to lead in the morning. A simple mission. 12 humans, 200 of my best. What could go wrong? Everything could go wrong. Everything did go wrong. And by the time the sun rose on Carnes for the next morning, and my dropships began their descent through the thick green clouds, I was already being hunted. I just did not know it yet. The hunt had started 3 days before we arrived. The hunt had started the moment I accepted the contract. The hunt had started, in some ways, centuries before I was born, when humans first evolved on their small blue world and learned that the most dangerous predator in the universe is the one that never stops chasing you. As my ship broke through the cloud layer and the research outpost came into view below us, I looked at my officers with the confident smile of a commander who thinks he is about to win easily. None of them smiled back. Some instinct in them, deeper than training, knew something I did not know. We were not the hunters. We had never been the hunters. We had walked into a trap so carefully designed that we did not realize we were inside it until it had already closed. And somewhere down there, in a forest near the outpost, a small human with tired eyes was sitting very still, watching our drop ships descend, and waiting patiently for the lesson to begin. The drop was flawless. That should have been my first warning. In 3 centuries of combat operations, I had never experienced a perfect drop. Something always goes wrong. A ship takes damage from anti-air defenses. A soldier breaks an ankle on a bad landing. Communications glitch. Equipment malfunctions. War is a machine made of friction, and friction always appears. But that morning, everything worked. All 3 drop ships landed exactly on their designated coordinates. All 200 of my soldiers deployed without a single injury. All of our equipment functioned perfectly. The defensive perimeter was established in under 90 seconds, which was a new company record. I stood in the center of our formation, looking at the research outpost 200 meters to the north, and I felt a cold feeling spreading through my chest. Something was wrong. I could not identify what was wrong, but something was wrong. The outpost looked exactly as the intelligence reports had described it. 4 prefabricated structures arranged around a central landing pad, a communications array on the western edge, a small power generator humming quietly. Everything was in the right place. Everything was exactly as it should be. That was the problem. I ordered my scouts forward. 6 Vexian specialists, small and fast, trained to move invisibly through any terrain. They advanced in a standard reconnaissance pattern, checking for mines, traps, and hidden sensors. They reported nothing. The ground around the outpost was clean. No tripwires, no proximity mines, no surveillance equipment. My lead scout reported something else. No thermal signatures inside the buildings. No movement. No electronic emissions beyond the basic power systems. The outpost appeared to be empty. I frowned. The intelligence report had been clear. 12 human soldiers. They should have been inside preparing defenses, calling for reinforcements, doing something. Instead, there was nothing. Just empty buildings and quiet forest. My first assumption was that the humans had detected our approach and fled. This made sense to me. 12 soldiers against 200 mercenaries is not a battle. It is a massacre. Any sensible commander would have ordered a retreat. I told myself that the humans had done exactly that, which was why the outpost was empty. I ordered the advance. My forces moved forward in 3 columns, with the Krogan heavy infantry in the center, the Mordak shock troopers on the flanks, and the Vexian snipers positioned on high ground to provide overwatch. Standard tactics, effective tactics, tactics that had worked for me 1,000 times before. We reached the outpost in 7 minutes. I ordered my soldiers to secure each building systematically. They kicked in doors, cleared rooms, checked basements. Every building was empty. No humans, no equipment, no documents. The computers had been wiped. The storage lockers were open and bare. The beds were made but cold. They had been gone for at least 12 hours, maybe longer. I stood in the main research building, looking at an empty desk where a computer had recently been, and I felt that cold feeling in my chest get colder. Something was very wrong. This was not the behavior of soldiers who had panicked and fled. Soldiers who panic leave things behind. They drop equipment. They forget documents. They leave personal items. This was the behavior of soldiers who had known we were coming, had prepared for our arrival, and had deliberately removed every trace of themselves. But why, if they had known we were coming, why not call for reinforcements? Why not set traps? Why not fight from defensive positions? Why simply leave? I was still thinking about this question when I heard the sound. It was a small sound, a soft whistle like wind through a narrow opening. I did not recognize it at first. Then I heard it again from a different direction. My communications officer spoke into my ear. She said, "Commander, we have lost contact with the rear guard." I turned to face her. The rear guard was 40 soldiers positioned behind the outpost to secure our extraction route. They had been reporting in every 2 minutes. They should have reported 30 seconds ago. They had not. I ordered her to reestablish contact. She tried for almost a full minute. No response. All 40 channels silent. I ordered a drone dispatch. The drone flew from our position to the rear guard location, a distance of about 400 meters. The drone feed appeared in the air in front of me. I watched. My officers gathered around. We saw the forest. We saw the clearing where the rear guard had positioned themselves. We saw. I cannot describe what we saw, not fully, because my mind still refuses to accept it even after 20 years. The rear guard was gone. Not gone as in defeated. Not gone as in hiding. Gone, but their equipment remained. Their armor was stacked neatly in the center of the clearing. 40 suits of powered armor, arranged in a careful pyramid, with the helmets on top and the boots on the bottom. Their weapons were disassembled. Every single weapon, taken apart into its component parts, laid out on a piece of canvas in perfect order. Their identification tags were arranged alphabetically on another piece of canvas nearby. There were no bodies. There was no evidence of a battle. There was no blood. There was no damage to the surrounding trees or ground. 40 soldiers had simply stopped existing, and their equipment had been respectfully dismantled and organized. The drone feed held for another 5 seconds. Then a shadow moved at the edge of the clearing, just a glimpse. A figure small, moving too fast to identify. Then the drone feed cut out. The drone was gone. My officers were silent. I was silent. The cold feeling in my chest had expanded until my entire body felt frozen. Then the voice came over our communications channel. Every channel, all at once. It was my own voice. It said, "All units fall back to the extraction point. Repeat, all units fall back to the extraction point. Evacuation required. Mission compromised." But I had not given that order. I had not spoken those words. Someone had taken recordings of my previous transmissions, cut them apart, and reassembled them into a new order. The voice was perfect. The cadence was perfect. Any of my soldiers listening would believe it was me. I shouted into the command channel, overriding the false order, telling my troops to hold position. But I was too late. The flanking columns, the Mordek shock troopers on the east and west, were already moving. They had obeyed the false command instantly, because they trusted me. They were retreating toward the extraction point where our drop ships waited. Except our drop ships were gone. I could not explain how. They had been parked on the landing pad 200 meters from the outpost. 3 heavily armored assault vessels, each guarded by 2 crew members. They had been there when we arrived. They were not there now. I could see the empty landing pad from where I stood. Nothing remained. Not even scorch marks from engines lifting off. The ships had simply stopped being there. My officers looked at me for orders. I did not have orders. For the first time in 3 centuries of command, I did not know what to do. My rear guard was gone. My flanking columns were advancing toward an extraction point that no longer existed. My air support had disappeared. I was standing in an empty research outpost that had been carefully abandoned by an enemy I had not seen. I ordered all remaining forces to consolidate at my position. Only about 120 of my original 200 remained with me. The flanking columns were already too far away. Too committed to their false retreat, I lost contact with them one channel at a time. A Mordak captain reported strange sounds in the forest. Then he went silent. Another officer reported his squad was missing. Then he went silent. Within 15 minutes, I had no contact with any flanking element. They were all gone. Siskis, my intelligence officer, the little Pratha who had warned me that something was strange about this mission, approached me with her data pad. She showed me a spectral analysis of the surrounding forest. She said, "Commander, look at this." The analysis showed thermal patterns in the forest, very faint, barely detectable. She had enhanced the readings as much as possible. What I saw made the cold feeling in my chest turn into something worse. Fear, real fear, the kind I had not felt in 2 centuries. Around our position in a perfect circle about 100 meters out, there were 12 thermal signatures, human body temperature. They were not moving. They were just standing, evenly spaced, watching us. They had been there the entire time. They had been there when we arrived. They had been there when we cleared the outpost. They had been there when the rear guard disappeared. 12 humans standing perfectly still in the forest, watching us. Siskis whispered, "Commander, the thermal camouflage they are using should not be possible. The technology required to produce readings this faint does not exist in any database I have access to. These humans are using equipment that nobody knows exists." I looked out at the forest. I could not see them with my own eyes. The trees were too thick, but I knew they were there now. I could feel their attention. The way a small animal feels the attention of a larger animal it cannot see. That was when I heard the second sound, a small click like a twig breaking, very close, behind me. I turned. There was nobody there, just my officers gathered around the drone feed station, studying the empty screen where our vanished drone had been transmitting moments before. Then I looked down. On the ground next to my right foot was a small object, a human object, a metal canteen. It had not been there 30 seconds ago. I was certain of that. I had been standing in this exact position and I would have noticed a metal canteen. On the canteen was a small piece of paper, handwritten letters in perfect Krogan script. The note said, "You are thirsty, please drink, we will speak soon." My communications officer screamed. She had been monitoring the channels of our flanking columns, hopping for any sign of survivors. She pulled her headset off and stared at me with wide eyes. She said, "They are singing." I did not understand. I asked her to explain. She said the channels, all of them, every frequency we have. Someone is singing, human songs, old songs. They have been singing for the last 4 minutes, quietly in the background of every transmission. I did not notice at first, but once I heard it, I could not stop hearing it. She played the audio for me. At first I heard nothing. Then, as my ears adjusted, I heard it too. A soft voice singing a human lullaby, gentle, peaceful. The kind of song a human mother might sing to a human child at bedtime. The song was coming from inside our own communication system, from frequencies that should have been secure, from channels that only my officers should have access to. The humans were inside our network. They had been inside our network the entire time. They had listened to every order I had given since we arrived on this planet. They had probably listened to every order I had given for the past several weeks. Siskis whispered, "Commander, what do we do?" I did not have an answer. For the first time in 3 centuries of commanding armies, I did not have an answer. I was standing in a trap that had no exit, surrounded by enemies I could not see, listening to a lullaby from my own radio, and holding a canteen of water left by someone who had stood close enough to touch me without me noticing. I did the only thing I could think to do. I sat down on the ground. I set the canteen beside me. I raised my empty hands. I spoke into every frequency at once in my clearest formal voice, using the old diplomatic cadence of my people. I said, "This is Commander Vrextel Kerr of the Crimson Fang Mercenary Company. I request parley. I request dialogue. I acknowledge that we are defeated. I request terms for surrender." The lullaby stopped. The forest became absolutely silent. Even the wind stopped moving through the trees. Then from about 6 feet behind me a voice spoke. A calm human voice, speaking in perfect Krogan. The voice said, "Commander Kerr, we appreciate your wisdom. Please remain seated. We are coming to speak with you." I turned my head slowly. Behind me, the ground that had been empty a moment before now contained a human. He was sitting cross-legged, 3 feet away from me, as if he had been there for hours. He was smaller than me, as all humans are. He wore a simple green uniform with no insignia. His face was ordinary. His eyes were tired, the way old soldiers' eyes become tired when they have seen too much. He smiled at me gently. He said, "My name is Marcus. Thank you for asking for parley. Most commanders in your position fight until there is nothing left to fight with. You chose differently. You chose the wise path. Because of that, we are going to let you live. But first, we need to have a conversation, a long conversation, about what you are going to do for us next." I stared at him. Behind me, I heard my officers whispering, asking where this human had come from, how he had appeared among us without being seen. I knew the answer. He had been there the entire time. He had walked right through our defensive perimeter, sat down 3 feet behind me, and waited for me to finish my formal surrender before speaking. The hunt was over. The lesson was about to begin. Marcus poured water from the canteen into a small metal cup. He held the cup out to me with both hands, the way my people offer drinks during formal negotiations. I accepted it with both hands because that was proper and because I did not know what else to do. He sat across from me, perfectly relaxed, as if we were old friends meeting for lunch. My surviving officers stood in a loose circle around us, weapons ready but not raised. Marcus did not seem to notice them. Or rather, he noticed them so completely that he did not need to pay them visible attention. I drank the water. It was cold and clean. I realized as I swallowed that I had not eaten or slept properly in 3 days due to mission preparation. My body was exhausted. Marcus seemed to know this. He produced a small ration bar from a pocket in his uniform and offered it to me. I took it. I ate it. It tasted of grain and honey and something spiced I could not identify. He watched me eat with a patient expression. When I was finished, he spoke. He said, "Commander Kerr, thank you for choosing parley. I want you to understand something important. The soldiers who were with you before my arrival, the ones in the flanking columns and the rear guard, are not dead. Some are wounded. Some are unconscious. But they are alive. We took them out of the fight using non-lethal methods. We will return them to you along with their equipment when this conversation is finished." I did not believe him at first. I had seen the empty clearing. I had seen the stacked armor and the disassembled weapons. That did not look like non-lethal tactics to me. That looked like something much worse. Marcus seemed to read my expression. He said, "I know what you think you saw. The armor stack was theatrical. I apologize for that. We needed to make a visual impression. The actual soldiers are sleeping peacefully in a secure location about 2 kilometers from here. Our medical team is watching them. They will wake up in a few hours with headaches and no memory of the last 8 hours. They will be returned to you before sunset." I asked him why. Why go to such elaborate trouble to capture my forces without harming them? Why not simply defeat us in battle? Why the theater, the mystery, the psychological pressure? Marcus smiled at the question. He said, "Because killing your soldiers would not teach you anything. Killing your soldiers would make you a martyr in your mercenary community. Other commanders would come to avenge you. More soldiers would die. More families would grieve. Nothing useful would be accomplished. But if you survive, Commander Kerr, and your soldiers survive, then you will go home and you will tell your community what happened here. And that will prevent future deaths. That is what we want. We do not want to kill mercenaries. We want mercenaries to stop taking contracts against us." I sat with this for a long moment. It was not what I had expected. I had expected threats. I had expected demands. I had expected to be tortured for information or used as a hostage. Instead, Marcus was explaining, patiently, that the entire operation had been designed to teach me a lesson I could carry home. I asked him who he was, not his name, his role. What unit did he belong to? What was his rank? Marcus hesitated. Then he said, "I am what your people would call a member of a human elite unit. My unit has no official public designation. Among ourselves, we use various names. The one most appropriate for this conversation would be Ghost Battalion, though that is not quite accurate either." I asked how many of them there were on this planet. He said 12, just the original 12 that your intelligence report mentioned. We did not bring reinforcements. We did not need them. 12 humans had defeated 200 of my best soldiers, without killing anyone, without being seen, using equipment that my intelligence officer could not identify, listening to our communications from inside our own network, appearing next to me without being detected. I asked him the question that had been burning in my mind since the lullaby played in our radios. I asked how they had done it, all of it, any of it. Marcus tilted his head. He said, "Commander, that is a complicated question. Some of it is technology. We have capabilities that your intelligence services do not know about. That is normal. Every advanced species has secret capabilities, but most of it is not technology. Most of it is training. And the training is the part you need to understand, because it is the part that will save your life if you listen carefully." He leaned forward slightly, his tired eyes fixed on mine. He said, "Commander Kerr, your species evolved on a world where you were already dominant. Krogans have been the apex predators of your home planet for millions of years. Nothing hunts you. Nothing challenges you. This is true of most species that achieve star flight. They come from worlds where they were already at the top of their food chain. Their civilization is built on the assumption that they are the hunters, never the prey." He paused, then he continued. He said, "Humans are different. Humans evolved on a world where we were not the dominant species. We were small. We were weak. Other predators could outrun us, outfight us, and outmatch us in almost every physical category. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors were prey animals as often as they were predators. We learned to survive not by being strong, but by being persistent, by being patient, by being willing to follow our prey for days, for weeks, for however long it took, until the prey was exhausted and could no longer resist us." I was listening very carefully now. This was not a lecture I had ever received. This was not information that existed in any xenobiology database I had ever read. Marcus continued. He said, "Most humans today are civilized. They live in cities, work in offices, raise children peacefully. The ancient hunter instincts are buried deep inside them, mostly forgotten. But in a small percentage of the human population, those instincts remain close to the surface. These humans are not broken. They are not dangerous in civilian life. Many of them are kind, gentle, and thoughtful people, but they have something most humans have lost. They are comfortable with their own ancient nature. They can access it when they need to, and put it away when they do not." He gestured to himself and to the forest around us. He said, "The 12 of us on this planet are humans of this type. We were identified early in our lives through certain psychological tests. We were recruited into a specialized program. We were trained to operate in ways that most modern humans would find uncomfortable. We do not enjoy this work, Commander Kerr. It is not pleasant for us, but we are good at it. We are very, very good at it." I asked him what he meant. What made his unit different from other human soldiers? Marcus thought about the question for a moment. Then he said, "Regular human soldiers fight battles. We do not fight battles. We remove obstacles. The obstacle in this case is your mercenary company, which was hired to attack human civilians. Our job is to remove that obstacle without causing more damage than necessary. Your soldiers are not dead because their deaths would create more obstacles. Your equipment is intact because destroying it would be wasteful. Your mission is canceled because we are telling you directly that it is canceled." He paused, then added something that made my blood run cold. He said, "Commander Kerr, we have been watching your company for 11 days. We know the names of your officers. We know the birthdays of their children. We know that your intelligence officer, S. Siskis, has a son who is graduating from academy next month. We know that Kelsiv, your former second-in-command, resigned 3 weeks ago and is currently at his ancestral home on Draxa Prime, teaching his grandchildren to fish. We know that you yourself have a daughter whose hatching day ceremony is scheduled for 42 days from now. Her name is Valissa. She is studying botanical sciences at the Krogan Central University." I could not speak. I could not breathe. He continued calmly, without any threat in his voice. He said, "I am not telling you these things to frighten you, Commander. I am telling you so that you understand the scope of what we do. We are not soldiers in the way your culture understands soldiers. We study our targets completely. We learn everything about them. Not because we plan to harm their families. We do not harm families. Not because we plan to use the information as leverage. We do not take hostages. We learn these things because we need to understand who we are dealing with. We need to know why you made the choices you made. We need to understand your motivations, your fears, your relationships, your history. Because understanding you is how we defeat you without wasting lives." S. Siskis, standing behind me, made a small sound. I realized she was weeping. She had not known that a human unit knew about her son. Marcus looked at her kindly. He said, "S. Siskis, your son is safe. He will remain safe. We have no interest in him. I mention him only because I want your commander to understand something important." He turned back to me. He said, "Commander Kerr, every mercenary company that has ever fought a human elite unit has lost, not because we are better fighters in a simple sense. In a fair battle with equal numbers and equal equipment, your Krogan soldiers would probably defeat my unit. You are stronger than us. You have better armor. You have natural weapons we lack. In a fair fight, we would likely lose." He paused for emphasis. He said, "But we never fight fair fights. We refuse to fight fair fights. It would be foolish to fight fair fights. A fair fight is for species that evolved as apex predators and believe combat should have rules. Humans did not evolve as apex predators. We evolved as prey that became predators by refusing to accept the rules of the hunt. We hunt at night when our prey is sleeping. We hunt in groups when our prey is alone. We hunt from ambush when our prey cannot see us. We hunt with tools when our prey has only teeth. We hunt with patience when our prey has no patience. We hunt with knowledge when our prey has no information. We hunt in every way that works, and we refuse to hunt in any way that does not." He looked at me with those tired eyes. He said, "This is why mercenaries refuse to fight human elite units. Not because we are unbeatable, we are not, but because we refuse to play the game your profession is built on. You are paid to fight battles. We are not paid to fight battles. We are tasked with solving problems. And when the problem is a mercenary company, the solution is to make that company understand that the contract is not worth completing. That is what this operation was. You are being shown that the contract is not worth completing. When you go home, you will refuse future contracts against humans. You will tell other commanders to refuse future contracts against humans. The message will spread. The profession will adjust. Fewer contracts will be offered. Fewer mercenaries will die. Fewer humans will be targeted. That is our victory. That is our strategy. It has worked for 200 years, and it will continue to work for as long as we exist." I finally found my voice. I asked him what he wanted me to do. Marcus reached into his pocket and produced a small data chip. He placed it on the ground between us. He said, "This chip contains a message for the Theshan consortium that hired you. You will deliver it to them personally. They will read it. They will understand. They will terminate the contract and never attempt this type of action again." He also produced a second chip. He said, This chip contains information for your mercenary community. You will share it with the major mercenary organizations in your region. It describes the boundaries of acceptable employment from our perspective. Contracts against human civilians will always result in our intervention. Contracts against human military will be handled by our military, not by us. Contracts against humans of any kind will be reviewed by us, and we will decide whether to respond. You will tell your community these boundaries. They will be respected, or we will enforce them. I accepted both chips. They were small in my hand. They did not feel heavy, but I understood that they were heavier than anything I had ever carried. Marcus stood up. The sun was beginning to set. He said, "Your soldiers will be returned to you within the next hour. Your drop ships will be returned to the landing pad within the next 2 hours. Your equipment will be returned intact. You will depart this planet before morning. You will not be followed. You will not be tracked. We have no further interest in you as long as you complete your delivery." He paused. Then he added something that has stayed with me for 20 years. He said, "Commander, one final matter. We are pleased that you chose parley. Most commanders do not. Most commanders fight until there is nothing left to fight with. You chose the wise path. Because of that, we would like to offer you something. A gift of sorts." I asked what the gift was. He said, "Peace. You will go home after this. You will complete the delivery. You will probably retire, as most commanders in your position do. You will spend the rest of your life looking over your shoulder expecting us to return. I am telling you now directly that we will not. Once you complete your delivery, your account with us is closed. You will never see us again. You will never hear from us again. You will live the rest of your days without our attention. That is the gift we are giving you, because you were wise enough to accept it." Then Marcus was gone, not gradually, not walking away. He was simply not there anymore in the space between one of my blinks and the next. I sat in the forest clearing for a long time, holding 2 data chips and an empty metal cup, and I tried to understand what had just happened to me. It would take me 20 years to understand it properly. And Marcus, it turned out, had lied to me about one thing, a small thing, a kind thing, but a lie. My soldiers returned exactly as Marcus had promised, all 187 of them. They walked out of the forest in groups of 10, confused and tired, rubbing their heads, asking what had happened. None of them remembered anything after the initial moments of the operation. One of my Mordeck captains said he remembered feeling a small sting on his neck, like an insect bite. Then he woke up in a clearing with his squad, all of them fine, all of them wondering how they had gotten there. The drop ships returned exactly when Marcus said they would. They appeared on the landing pad as if they had never left. The crew members were on board, asleep in their chairs, waking up as their ships settled back onto the pad. None of them remembered flying anywhere. All of our equipment was returned. Every weapon, every piece of armor, every data pad, everything had been cleaned. Some items had been repaired. My own service weapon, which had been starting to have a small mechanical issue with the safety switch, had been disassembled, cleaned, repaired, and reassembled perfectly. When I tested it, the safety switch worked better than it had in months. We departed Carnes 4 before morning, exactly as Marcus had instructed. Nobody tried to stop us. Nobody followed us. The jump to hyperspace was smooth and uneventful. Within 6 hours, we were halfway across the sector, heading back to our home base on the mercenary station at Tarvel Prime. During the journey, I sat alone in my office and looked at the 2 data chips Marcus had given me. I did not open them. I did not know what was on them beyond what Marcus had told me, but I knew I had to deliver them as instructed. When we arrived at Tarvel Prime, I did something I had never done before in my career as a commander. I called a full assembly of the Crimson Fang Mercenary Company, all 187 survivors. I stood in front of them in the main briefing hall, and I told them the truth. I told them everything that had happened on Carnes 4. I told them about the 12 humans who had defeated 200 of our best soldiers without harming any of them. I told them about Marcus. I told them about the thermal readings that Siskis had detected. I told them about the lullaby in our radios. I told them about the canteen that had appeared by my foot. When I was finished, my soldiers were silent. Then a young Krogan officer, a lieutenant named Veskar, raised his hand. He asked the question I had been dreading. He asked what we were going to do next. I told him. I told all of them. The Crimson Fang Mercenary Company was disbanded, effective immediately. Every soldier would receive their full pay, plus a generous severance package from my personal accounts. Every soldier would receive a letter of recommendation that would help them find honorable employment with other mercenary organizations if they wished to continue this work. Every soldier would receive my personal thanks for their years of service, and my personal apology for taking a contract that should have been refused. The company ended that day. I transferred the ownership of our equipment to a small charitable organization that provided training to underprivileged youth on several Krogan colony worlds. I closed all of our corporate accounts. I canceled all of our pending contracts, including some very lucrative ones that I would have been contractually obligated to complete under normal circumstances. I paid the cancellation fees out of my own funds, which took most of my retirement savings. I did not care. I could not command soldiers anymore. I had lost the right to command when I led 200 of them into a trap that I had been warned about. 3 weeks after the dissolution, I delivered the first data chip to the Theshan Consortium. I traveled to their headquarters personally. I was shown into a conference room where 12 executives sat around a polished black table. I placed the data chip on the table, explained briefly that the contract had not been completed, provided their refund along with a small additional payment for their inconvenience, and told them that the chip contained information they would want to review. The executives were angry at first. They had expected a completed mission. They had expected valuable data from the research outpost. They had not expected a dissolved mercenary company and a mysterious data chip. They demanded explanations. They threatened legal action. They said they would blacklist me across their corporate network. I let them finish. Then I suggested politely that they review the data chip before taking any further action. I left the conference room. I left their headquarters. I left their planet. 3 days later, the news reached me. Every member of the Theshan Consortium board had resigned simultaneously, all 12 of them on the same day, within a few hours of each other. Each resignation letter was polite and professional. Each cited personal reasons. Each executive left their position immediately, packed their belongings, and departed to various distant worlds for what they described as long vacations. None of them ever returned to their positions. The consortium was dissolved 6 months later for lack of leadership. I do not know what was on the data chip. I never will. Whatever Marcus had included was enough to convince 12 wealthy, powerful, ambitious executives to give up their positions and flee to distant locations. It was not a threat, exactly. The executives were not afraid for their lives. They simply understood after viewing the information that continuing their consortium was no longer a wise choice. They made the decision voluntarily. That, I realized, was exactly how humans like to operate. They did not force their enemies to surrender. They simply made surrender the obviously correct choice. The second data chip I delivered to the Mercenary Council on Tarvel Prime. The Council was the governing body for all mercenary organizations in our sector. I requested a private meeting with the 5 senior council members. I explained what had happened on Carnes 4. I gave them the chip. I told them it contained important information about future employment opportunities involving humans. The council reviewed the chip privately. 2 weeks later, they issued a new policy. All mercenary organizations operating in our sector were required to report any contracts involving humans to the council for review. Contracts against human civilians would be automatically rejected. Contracts against human military forces would require special authorization. Contracts against anything designated as a human elite unit would result in immediate suspension of the mercenary organization that accepted them. The policy was controversial at first. Some organizations complained that it restricted their ability to take lucrative contracts, but within a year, every single mercenary organization in the sector had implemented the policy voluntarily, because word had spread. The story of the Crimson Fang had spread. Other stories had also spread. Stories I had not known about. Stories from other commanders who had encountered human elite units over the past 2 centuries. My experience, I learned, was not unique. It was actually rather common. I was just one of the first commanders to talk about it publicly. That was the beginning of my new life. The life after the Crimson Fang. The life after Marcus. For the next 15 years I traveled. I did not need to work. I had enough savings combined with my military pension to live simply for the rest of my days. I used my freedom to research. I traveled to dozens of worlds seeking out retired mercenary commanders and officers. I bought them drinks. I listened to their stories. I took careful notes. I was compiling something. A record of every known encounter between mercenary forces and human elite units over the past 300 years. What I found was extraordinary and terrifying and somehow strangely comforting. I found that my experience was not just common, it was standardized. Almost every encounter followed the same general pattern. A mercenary force would be hired to attack a human target. The mercenary force would underestimate the opposition based on official records. The human elite unit would respond using non-lethal methods, psychological pressure, and overwhelming tactical superiority. The mercenary commander would either surrender or be defeated through indirect means. The mercenary force would be returned to their home base, mostly intact, with instructions to deliver a message. The contracting party would receive the message, review it, and voluntarily cancel the contract. The pattern was almost identical across 3 centuries and dozens of different encounters. This was not random. This was not emergent behavior. This was a deliberate strategy, practiced and refined over many generations, designed to achieve specific goals with minimum damage. I also found something else, something that made the cold feeling return to my chest. Every encounter ended with the mercenary commander being allowed to live, every single one. Over 300 years, across dozens of encounters, not a single mercenary commander had been killed by a human elite unit. All of them had been released, given data chips or verbal messages, and sent home to spread the word. All of them, I realized, had been recruited, not formally, not with contracts or payment, but recruited nonetheless. Every one of us was working for the human elite units now. We just did not call it that. We called it retirement, or reform, or learning wisdom. But really, we were messengers. We were the unofficial spokesmen for the human elite units, spreading their reputation, enforcing their policies, shaping the mercenary community to avoid conflicts with humans. They had not just defeated us. They had absorbed us. They had taken their enemies and turned them into allies, without the enemies ever fully realizing what had happened. I met other retired commanders, 12 of us in different cities across the sector who had all experienced similar encounters. We formed a loose, informal group. We called ourselves, only among ourselves, the Warned. We met occasionally for dinner. We shared stories. We compared notes. We noticed patterns together. One of us, an old Vexian commander named Melrith, had kept her encounter secret for 60 years before confiding in the rest of us. She had been hired to assist a pirate organization in attacking human merchant ships. Her fleet of 30 vessels had been dismantled by a human elite unit over the course of 3 weeks. Not destroyed, dismantled. One by one, her captains had received letters, personal letters, delivered by methods she could not explain. The letters had contained information about the captains that nobody should have known. Personal information, family information, financial information. Each captain, after receiving their letter, had voluntarily defected from the pirate organization and sought honorable employment elsewhere. Her fleet had disbanded not through combat, but through 12 separate personal decisions made over the span of 20 days. Another of us, a Draxan named Coraxus, had been hired to assassinate a human diplomat. His assassination team of 8 specialists had been redirected without their knowledge. Each of them had received fake updated orders from within their own organization, orders that came from sources they trusted completely. Instead of assassinating the diplomat, they had been directed to a neutral planet to meet with a new client. When they arrived, they found themselves at a resort where they were informed that their original mission had been canceled and that they should take a paid vacation. The human elite unit had paid for the vacation. After 2 weeks of rest, the team had disbanded voluntarily. None of them had ever worked in assassination again. The stories accumulated: 30 encounters, 50 encounters, 70 encounters. I kept collecting them. A pattern emerged that went far beyond simple military engagement. The human elite units were not just soldiers, they were something else. Something I did not have a word for at the time, something like gardeners. They pruned the galactic mercenary profession. They removed branches that would have caused problems. They encouraged growth in directions that caused no harm. They did not eliminate mercenaries. They just shaped mercenaries into forms that were compatible with human interests. And all of this was done with minimal casualties. Over 300 years of operations, the total number of mercenaries killed directly by human elite units appeared to be less than 100. Compared to the tens of thousands of mercenaries killed by traditional human military forces in the same period, this was a remarkably small number. The human elite units were not the most dangerous humans to fight in terms of pure lethality. They were the most dangerous humans to fight in terms of strategic outcomes. They did not kill you, they changed you. 15 years into my research, I decided to publish my findings, not as a public warning, not as a political statement, just as an academic study, a contribution to xenomilitary literature. I wrote a careful, thorough paper. I did not name specific humans. I did not reveal specific capabilities. I simply documented the pattern I had observed, drawing on dozens of interviews and hundreds of pieces of historical evidence. I submitted the paper to a small academic journal that specialized in military history and theory. The paper was accepted. It was published. It received modest attention in academic circles. A few military historians found it interesting. A few mercenary commanders read it and found it useful. Nothing dramatic happened. 2 days after the paper was published, I returned to my apartment on Tarvel Prime after my evening walk. There was a small package at my door, plain brown wrapping, no return address. I took it inside carefully because after everything I had learned, I was cautious about unexpected packages. I opened the package at my kitchen table, wearing protective gloves with a scanning device running. The scanner found nothing dangerous, just organic material and paper. Inside the package was a fresh loaf of human bread, still warm. It smelled of wheat and honey, the same smells I had experienced during my encounter with Marcus 15 years before. A small handwritten note sat on top of the bread. The note was written in perfect Krogan script, in a handwriting I recognized immediately. The note said, "We are proud of you for telling the truth. Your research will save lives. Please enjoy the bread. It is baked from an old recipe. We thought you might like it. Signed, M." I sat at my kitchen table for a long time, looking at the bread and the note, and I understood something I had not understood before. Marcus had lied to me, a small lie, a kind lie, but a lie. He had told me 20 years earlier that once I completed my delivery, my account with them would be closed, that I would never hear from them again, that they would have no further interest in me. It had been a lie. They had been watching me the entire time, for 15 years across dozens of worlds, through every interview and every piece of research. They had known what I was doing. They had watched me gather information that they themselves had arranged for me to find. They had guided me subtly toward the conclusions they wanted me to reach. They had helped me, invisibly, to produce the paper I had just published. a paper that would now spread my findings through academic channels to every major military organization in the sector. I was not a researcher who had discovered the truth about human elite units. I was a messenger who had been assigned a delivery, one that required 15 years of preparation, and I had just completed my task. And Marcus was saying thank you with fresh bread. I laughed. Alone in my kitchen, I laughed until tears came from my eyes. It was not a happy laughter, but it was not sad either. It was the laughter of a man who has finally understood a joke that has been going on around him for 20 years. The joke was on me. The joke had always been on me, and somehow the joke was also kind. Marcus had given me a useful life after my defeat. He had given me purpose. He had given me meaning. He had given me, in a strange way, the peace he had promised me all those years ago. It was not the peace of being left alone. It was the peace of being used for something worthwhile. I ate the bread. It was delicious. And I understood, finally, the real reason mercenaries refuse to fight human elite units. It is not because we might lose. Every soldier can accept losing. It is not because we might die. Every soldier can accept death. It is because the human elite units do not consider the engagement finished when we surrender, or when we retreat, or when we return home. They consider it finished when they decide it is finished. And sometimes that decision comes many years later. Sometimes it never comes at all. They absorb us. They use us. They shape us into instruments that serve their long-term purposes. And the worst part, the truly terrible part, is that we eventually come to understand what they are doing and we let them continue. Because they are right. What they do works. It saves lives. It prevents wars. It keeps the galaxy in balance. Whether we like it or not, whether we ever chose it or not, we become part of their strategy. 20 years later, I sit in this bar on Neutral Station Delta 9, and I wait for a young Krogan officer who is about to make the same mistake I made. His name is Tybran Valk. He is barely 80 years old, which is quite young by Krogan standards. He walks into the bar with the swagger of a commander who has won many small victories and now believes he is ready for a large one. I recognize the walk because I used to walk that way. I also recognize the look in his eyes, the hunger for a truly lucrative contract, the confidence that he is smarter than the commanders who came before him. He spots me in the corner booth. He walks over, sits down across from me, and orders 2 drinks without asking what I want. The bartender, a young human named Lily who has worked here for the past 3 years, brings the drinks quickly and efficiently. She smiles at me as she sets down my glass. Just a polite smile, a bartender's smile. I smile back politely. I have learned over the years to be polite to every human I meet because I never know which ones might be working for Marcus. Tybran raises his glass in a toast. He says to the legendary Commander Kerr, "Thank you for meeting with me." I touch his glass with mine and drink. I do not toast back because I do not toast to things I do not believe in. Tybran does not seem to notice. He leans forward. He says, "Commander, I have a contract offer that I think you will find fascinating. My company has been approached by a consortium of industrial interests in the outer spiral. They want to recover some research materials from a human scientific outpost on a disputed mining world. The pay is extraordinary. We are talking about enough credits to fund my company for the next 10 years. I would like your advice on how to proceed." I watch him as he speaks. His eyes are bright. His hands move enthusiastically when he describes the payment amount. He believes, truly believes, that he is about to make the opportunity of a lifetime. He has no idea that he is sitting across from someone who made the same choice 20 years ago. I ask him a simple question. I ask him which human unit is guarding the outpost. He checks his data pad. He says the designation is 14th Survey Detachment. Standard Scientific Protection Force. Nothing unusual. I ask him to look more carefully. He frowns. He scrolls through the data pad. He says there are some unusual inconsistencies in the records. The unit does not appear in standard military databases. Their medal citations are missing. Their casualty reports are redacted. He assumes this is because they are a new or specialized unit, perhaps classified for administrative reasons. I set my glass down. I speak to him carefully, slowly, because what I am about to say is the most important thing I will ever say to another Krogan. I say, Tybran, listen to me. 14th Survey Detachment is not a survey unit. It is a cover designation. The real name of the unit, the one they use among themselves, is Shadow Company. 20 years ago, I took a similar contract. The unit I faced was Ghost Battalion. I went in with 200 of my best soldiers. I came out with 187 survivors, a disbanded company, and a data chip I was required to deliver. The company I spent 100 years building ended that week. My career ended that week. Everything I had worked for, everything I had believed about my own abilities, ended that week. Tybran listens. His expression is skeptical but attentive. I continue. I say the human elite units are not what you think they are. They are not simply elite human soldiers. They are something else. They are the humans who have been trained to access their ancestral hunting instincts without shame. They operate in ways that most species cannot prepare for because most species did not evolve as prey. They study their targets for weeks before engaging. They know everything about you. They know your family, your hobbies, your fears, your history. They use this information to defeat you without fighting you when possible. When fighting is necessary, they fight in ways that ignore every rule of engagement that our cultures consider normal. They are not evil. They are not cruel. They are simply very good at what they do, and what they do is remove obstacles to human interests. Tybran is quiet now. He is watching me carefully. The swagger has faded from his posture. He is listening the way a young officer listens when an old officer speaks from experience. I say, Tybran, if you accept this contract, one of three things will happen. The most likely outcome is that you will be defeated without dying, your company will be dissolved voluntarily, and you will spend the rest of your life as an unofficial messenger for the human elite units. A less likely outcome is that you will die, though this is rare, because they prefer to use their enemies as messengers rather than martyrs. The third possibility is that you will refuse to surrender when given the opportunity, and you will be forced to watch everyone you command be systematically separated from you over a period of days or weeks, until you are alone and broken. That third outcome is the worst, and it is the one reserved for commanders who refuse to accept the lesson. Tybran is silent for a long time. Finally, he asks me a question. He asks whether the human elite units can truly be that effective, whether 12 humans can really defeat 200 mercenaries without killing them. I say yes. I say I have seen it personally. I say I have researched it for 15 years. I say it is true. The pattern is consistent across hundreds of encounters over 3 centuries. The data is clear. The human elite units defeat mercenary forces at a rate close to 100% using non-lethal methods, without exception in recent history. Tybran looks at his drink. He looks at his data pad. He looks at the contract offer displayed on the screen. The payment amount glows in front of him, enormous, tempting, deadly. He asks me one more question. He asks what I would do if I were in his position. I answer honestly. I say I would decline the contract. I would return the offer to the consortium with a polite refusal. I would find other work, less lucrative but safer. I would remember that I have a family who needs me alive. I would remember that my company has soldiers who depend on me to make wise decisions. I would remember that some opportunities are traps dressed in fine clothing. Tybran closes his data pad. He takes a long drink from his glass. He sits in silence for nearly a full minute. I do not rush him. This is the most important decision he will make in his career. He needs time to make it properly. Finally, he looks up at me. His eyes are different now. Not defeated, not afraid, just wiser in a way that made me proud of him. He says, Commander Kerr, thank you. I will decline the contract. I will warn my colleagues. I will pass this lesson on to my officers. I owe you a debt I cannot repay. I tell him he owes me nothing. I tell him the lesson has already been passed on many times by many commanders for many years. I am just one more voice in a long chain of voices, all of us trying to save lives by telling the truth. Tybrin nods. He thanks me again. He stands up. He takes his data pad with him. He walks out of the bar with a different posture than he walked in with. Slower, more thoughtful. The swagger is gone, replaced by something more useful. I sit alone in the booth for a few minutes, finishing my drink. The bar is quiet. A few other customers sit at various tables. The bartender, Lily, cleans glasses behind the counter. The station beyond the window continues its slow rotation, showing me the star field and the distant planets of the sector. Lily walks over to my booth. She is carrying a fresh drink. She sets it down in front of me. She says, "On the house, Commander, you handled that young officer well." I look up at her. I have known Lily for 3 years. I have seen her almost every evening. I have never thought of her as anything other than a young bartender working to pay for her education. Now I look at her carefully. Her eyes are not the eyes of a young bartender. They are calm, attentive, patient. They are the eyes of someone who has been watching for a long time. She smiles at me, a small, kind smile. She says, "Marcus sends his greetings, Commander. He says you did very good work tonight. That young Krogan was going to lead a lot of his soldiers to serious harm. You saved them. Marcus is grateful." I cannot speak for a moment. I look at the drink she has placed in front of me. It is a special drink, made from a Krogan root vegetable that is not commonly available outside our home systems. Somehow, this small bar on a neutral station has exactly the right ingredients to make it, and Lily has made it perfectly. I ask her how long she has been watching me. She says, "The entire time, Commander. We have been watching you the entire time. Since the day we met on Carney's 4, we have never stopped watching. You have been one of our most effective messengers. You have saved hundreds of mercenary lives through your research and your counsel. You have improved the mercenary profession across 3 sectors. You have done good work for us without ever being asked directly." I ask her why she is telling me this now, why after 20 years. Lily sits down across from me, where Tybrin had been sitting a few minutes before. She places her hands on the table, palms down, in the human gesture of openness. She says, "Because you have earned the right to know, Commander. You have served us well. You have served your own people well. You have saved lives on all sides. We think it is time for you to have full knowledge of what you have been part of, if you want it." I say I want it. Lily takes a deep breath. Then she tells me things I did not know. She tells me that the human elite units are not just military organizations. They are a kind of galactic peacekeeping force, operated without official sanction, without public acknowledgement, without formal authority. They operate in the spaces between official governments, solving problems that official militaries cannot solve. They have been doing this for almost 300 years. Their goal is not human dominance. Their goal is galactic stability. They prevent wars. They prevent massacres. They prevent accidents that could escalate into multi-species conflicts. They do this quietly, patiently, and effectively. She tells me that my research paper, the one I published 15 years ago, has become required reading for military officers in 12 different species governments, including the Krogan military. My insights have shaped policy across an entire region of space. Millions of lives have probably been saved, indirectly, because of the choices my research has influenced. She tells me that Kelsiv, my old second-in-command, did not die naturally. He was attacked 12 years ago by a group of bandits on his home world. He would have died, except that members of Marcus's unit happened to be nearby. They intervened. They saved him. He lived for another 6 years after that attack peacefully, before finally dying in his sleep at a very old age. The human elite units had protected him, quietly, because he had once been wise enough to refuse a bad contract, and they believed wise people deserved protection. She tells me that my daughter Valissa is now a senior researcher at the Krogan Central University. Her research on xenobotanical medicine has saved countless lives across the sector. Her work has been funded, for the past 10 years, by an anonymous grant from a foundation she has never been able to identify. The foundation is, of course, connected to the human elite units. They have been supporting her work because her work does good, and they support things that do good. I ask Lily, my voice quieter than I expected, whether my daughter knows about any of this. Lily says no. Her safety depends on her not knowing. She will live her entire life without ever understanding the protection she has received. She will think her accomplishments are entirely her own, which in most ways they are. She will think her success is entirely deserved, which it is. But she will never know that certain small obstacles were removed from her path quietly by people who cared about her father and the work he was doing. I drink the special drink she has made me. It tastes of my home world. It tastes of my childhood. It tastes of memories I have not thought about in 100 years. I ask her one final question. I ask whether Marcus is still alive. Lily smiles. She says yes, Marcus is still alive. He is older now, of course. He has retired from active operations, but he still follows the work of his former messengers. He has a particular fondness for you, Commander. You were his first successful conversion during a mission early in his career. He says you handled the situation with more wisdom than he had expected. He has watched your career ever since with something like pride. I sit in silence for a long moment. I think about Marcus, the tired eyes, the patient voice, the small canteen of water offered to me in a forest clearing on a forgotten planet 20 years ago. I think about how much my life has changed because of him. I think about how different I am now from the arrogant commander who accepted that terrible contract. I ask Lily if she can deliver a message to Marcus from me. She says yes. I tell her, please tell Marcus that I understand now, that I forgive him for the small lie he told me that day, that I am grateful for the life he allowed me to have, even if it was not the life I would have chosen, that I hope someday, when he is very old and I am very old, we might meet again, somewhere peaceful and share a meal together, not as enemies, not as soldiers, just as two old men who have lived long lives and done their best to leave the galaxy better than they found it. Lily's smile becomes wider. She says, Commander, I will deliver that message personally. I think Marcus would like that very much. She stands up. She pats my shoulder gently, the way a human might pat the shoulder of an old friend. She says, the drink is on the house always. Come back anytime, Commander. We are always happy to see you. She walks back to the bar. She picks up a glass and begins polishing it, as if nothing has happened, as if our entire conversation has been a routine exchange between a bartender and a regular customer. I finish my drink slowly. I think about everything I have learned tonight. I think about the 20 years that have shaped me into the man I am now. I think about the work I have done, the lives I have saved, the young commanders I have warned, the research I have produced. I think about my daughter, safe and successful, protected by forces she will never know about. I think about Kelsiv, who died peacefully in his old age because wise people deserve protection. I think about Marcus, retired now, watching the work of his former students with quiet pride. The real reason mercenaries refuse to fight human elite units is not fear. It is not respect. It is not even wisdom exactly. It is that the human elite units do not treat warfare the way we do. They do not see their enemies as enemies. They see them as opportunities. Every commander they defeat becomes, potentially, an ally. Every mercenary company they dissolve becomes, potentially, a group of individuals who can do better work elsewhere. Every battle they avoid becomes a resource they can use for their long-term mission of galactic stability. They do not win wars by winning battles. They win wars by making their enemies into their partners, without their enemies ever quite realizing what has happened. And the strangest part, the part that took me 20 years to understand, is that this is good. What they do is good. The galaxy is more stable because of them. Fewer wars happen. Fewer civilians die. Fewer species are destroyed by conflicts that could have been prevented. They are doing work that needs to be done, and they do it in a way that harms as few people as possible, and they ask for nothing in return except that their former enemies spend the rest of their lives helping them quietly. I am their partner now. I have been their partner for 20 years. Tybran Volk, who just left this bar, is now part of the same system. He will refuse his contract. He will warn other commanders. He will save lives without ever knowing that he is working within a strategic framework designed by humans he will never meet. I stand up from the booth. I leave a generous tip for Lily, though I am sure she does not need the credits. I walk out of the bar and into the curved corridor of Neutral Station Delta 9. The station lights are dim, set to the evening cycle. A few travelers walk past me, going about their various businesses. The galaxy continues to turn. I think about what I will do tomorrow. I will probably come back to this bar. I will probably have another conversation with another young commander who needs advice. I will probably save a few more lives, quietly, invisibly, with words chosen carefully across a small table. And somewhere far from here, Marcus will hear about it. And he will smile. And he will be pleased that his old friend, the Krogan commander with 300 years of experience and shaking hands, is still doing good work. That is enough for me. That is more than enough. That is the real reason mercenaries refuse to fight human elite units. Not because they lose, but because, in losing, they find something better than winning ever was. They find a purpose bigger than themselves. And once you have that, you never want to go back to what you had before. The end.